Hi, I'm James. Let's take a look at how to use the Algolia Search plugin from Zeroqode. Just before we jump into it, if you need any help building your app or product, feel free to reach out to our team by visiting our website at zeroqode.com. We're the largest maker of plugins for Bubble, as well as the top gold tier Bubble agency. We have almost 10 years of experience and can help you build any web, mobile, or AI product, or even help automate your business. While you're there, make sure you check out zeroqode.com/plugins. This is the full list of all the plugins we make, and there's like over 700 of them. So there's something there to cover pretty much everything your app could possibly need to do. For example, there's Stripe Marketplace Express. This helps you accept credit card payments on your app. There's Mapbox Maps, and this gives all sorts of maps functionality. This one's really good for saving on Bubble's hosting costs. This is AWS File Uploader, so you can store your files on your own S3 bucket. There's Air Calendar, there's Air Chat and Messaging. There's so many more there, so definitely explore that and check that out. The Algolia Search plugin gives you a full integration with Algolia's search platform directly in your Bubble app, giving you like a massive improvement to your Bubble app search experience. So let's have a look at the plugin page first and get our head around what we're looking at here. There are a few things on this page that are going to be really helpful to learning about and installing this plugin. The first thing is the live demo button here. This will open a pre-built Bubble app that we've developed here with the plugin already installed or configured. So you can try it out and use it from a user's point of view and see what the experience is like and run some searches and see how it feels and works from a user's point of view to make sure it does what you're wanting it to do within your app. Next to that, you'll see the demo editor button. Now this opens up the same app that we were just looking at, but from the Bubble point of view, from the kind of inside the app view. So you can look at the workflows, look at the integrations, look at how it's all set up and works together. And just kind of see, pull it apart and see behind the curtain of how this plugin is set up and, what workflows are set up and how it's all configured. Lastly, here we have the documentation link. Now, this plugin can do heaps. It can do a lot. And of course, there is the installation and integration with Algolia's platform itself. So this is going to be really helpful and really important for setting up the plugin, what you need to get your data into the plugin and indexed, and how you can configure it then and make it behave in your app exactly the way that you need it to. So definitely have a read through this as well. This will give you all the information you need to get it up and running and working. There's all this more advanced functionality you can see here on the side. The last thing that I will mention on this page is our intercom widget here. So if you have any questions about this plugin, any questions about installing its functionality, troubleshooting, send us a message here. We would love to help you out. We can answer any and all questions about this plugin and all of our plugins. But for now, let's jump into the Bubble editor together and let's set up the basics of this plugin to get you started and get the ball rolling. Okay, so once in our Bubble editor here, we need to get the plugin in our app. So first thing to do, click on the left here in our plugins tab. And then in the top right, click on Add Plugins. That'll open up this little modal window, and we want to search for Algolia Search. And there we go, Algolia Search version 2.0 by Zeroqode. Now you've got two options here to install this plugin in your app. There's a one-off payment or there's a monthly subscription. Now the subscription is the most risk-free way to try this out, as you're charged on a pro rata basis, which means you're only charged for the days that the plugin is actually installed and active in your app. So if it's $6 a month plugin here, and you install it, you try it out for one day and decide it doesn't quite work and you uninstall it, you're only charged for that one day. So $6 divided by 30 days in that month. So it's really cheap, really risk-free, and the best way to try this out before committing to a larger purchase. So whichever option you have here, click on install on the plugin. It'll appear in your app, and let's jump in and build something together. Now, as you might have guessed from the name, we need to set up an Algolia application for this to work within our Bubble app. So what I recommend is checking the documentation for this. It's super comprehensive here and goes through every single step, especially as, being a third-party application, Algolia may be changing and updating. So definitely reference the documentation for the most comprehensive way to do this. For now, though, we'll go through the steps that I've got here on Algolia to set up a new application just to get us started. So I've said new application. I'll select US West. I accept the terms. And there we go. It's asking us what data do we want within our search data. We can connect with an API, we can use integration, we can just upload a JSON or a CSV file of all of our data that we want to be searching through. For the sake of this demo, though, I'm just going to use a sample data set. And this is the quickest way to get this set up and up and running and check how it all works within your app. So let's choose sample data set. And let's say the movie data set. This will just put a whole bunch of movies into a data set that we can search through and display in our Bubble app. Okay, here we go. We have all of our data in our searchable database. Now, the fields that we're really working with for this sample data set is our title of the movie, an overview of the movie, and we can see that here, and an image. I'm not going to change anything there. I'm just going to keep that as is and move on to the next step. Now, we'll be referencing these fields within our Bubble app, so making these as accurate as possible is important here. And again, to keep this demo quite simple so we can set this up, I'm just going to leave the title and the overview as the two fields that we will be searching. Of course, customize this in any way that makes the most sense for your app. If there are more fields and more data that you need to search through within the front end of your app, add those here. But for now, I'm just going to leave those two. You can put a custom ordering and custom ranking attribute in this stage if you're wanting to control the relevancy of your results. Again, I'm going to keep this simple. We want to get this set up as quickly as possible and get you the basics so that you can then build upon that. So I'll leave that blank for now. All right, once the onboarding is done and you're here in the overview of your application, let's get our API keys and bring them over to Bubble. So click on API keys here, or go down to settings in the bottom left and then API keys. And we'll see a few different ones here. The ones we're going to need to copy and paste are our application ID, so this one here, our search API key, this one here, and our admin API key, this one here. Copy those and bring them across to your Bubble app. In the Bubble app, let's head over to the Plugins tab and then select Algolia Search, and you'll see here the areas for our application ID, our admin API key, and our search API key that we just saw. So paste those in there for the production area and the development area, and that will be everything we need to connect our app with Algolia. Okay, so those keys are what's going to enable our application to connect to Algolia's data set. What do we do then for the front end to make that all work from a user's point of view? So I'm in my Bubble editor here. Let's have a look at a few things. Now that we have the plugin installed, you'll see there's a new element here in our assets panel called Algolia Simple Search. Now, I'll escape that because I've already got one on there. That's this element here. So this just needs to be on your page, and this is where we put the information and the data, the parameters that connect us to Algolia's end. So with this selected, you'll see a bunch of things have shown up here, and this is where we link everything up. So let's have a look at what we have here. We've got the index name, we have a query, we have a type of content, what fields and how many hits, and a whole bunch of search things we can adjust and control to make this behave the way we want it to behave. Let's have a look. So index name is the name of the actual data set that we're searching on our Algolia end. So let's jump back to Algolia and see what that is. So we can see here in Algolia, under the application we just made that is creatively called unnamed application, we have an index called movie. Now this is the name of a whole collection of records that we're searching through. So that's what we want to put in our Bubble end. You can see here, movie. Now the query is the actual search term. Where is the search term coming from? So I put an input on our page here, input A, and just for a test, I want the user to type in the search term that they're wanting to find in here. So we go back to our simple search element. We can see the query is input A's value. Whatever is in input A is what we're searching. The type of content needs to be Algolia result. So that'll come through once you have the plugin installed within your Bubble app. So set that to Algolia result, and the fields that we want to retrieve match the fields that we just set up in our index in Algolia. So we have title and overview for the movie title and the movie description. Now, I haven't changed much else here just to keep things nice and simple for us, but we can specify how many hits and results per page we want to show, if we want to retrieve a particular page, and the proximity that we want in terms of accuracy and relevancy in our search terms. Now, keep in mind, every single one of these has a documentation paragraph below it that you can read about what each field does. And we have the documentation that goes into more detail with all of this if you wanted to make something a lot more custom, a lot more advanced with your search functionality. But for now, that's all I need. So we have a way to search. We put in an input field, and that input field is connecting to our Algolia Simple Search elements to actually connect to our data set. How do we display it on the front end though? That's the important thing. Where do we put our search results? Let's have a look at that next. So we do this with a repeating group. I've got a repeating group here. Now, inside that repeating group, I've just put a single text field because all I want to do is make sure this is working. I just want to make sure that we can retrieve the name of our movies in our data set. So how have we set this up? I've got repeating group results, and I'll put the type of content as text. Now, the data source comes from this element as well. So this element both links to our input for the query, and it links to where the results are coming from. So this is really our pathway to and from Algolia through Algolia's data. So I'll select our repeating group. The data source is Algolia Simple Search A, which is this element here, its results, and field one being the name, the movie name that we set with our fields. And then we want to show all the items up until item number 8, because I only want to show 8 results, 2 rows of 4 in my results. And that's it, really. Now, to correctly display the name of the result, the title of the result that we want to show here in this text field in our repeating group, we have a dynamic expression here. So we have Algolia Simple Searches A's, Algolia Simple Search A's, which is this element here. Its result that we're searching for, we want the result. The field 1, which is the title. We know there are 2 fields, title and overview, in our index that we set up, and we just want to show field 1 here. And we want the item number of the current cell's index. So the item number of the current cell. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, the actual cells in our repeating group. So that will then, it'll search our Algolia index by going via the Algolia Simple Search element. It'll get the results from searching our index. It'll grab field 1. We can put field 2, field 3, field 4 here if we want to. But that's not relevant to us. We only have 2 fields in our sample data, the name and the overview, and we only want to show the name in our test app here. So we know the name is field 1. And then the item number that we show in this cell is the item number of the current cell's index. And again, this is all in the documentation if you want to see this written down step by step of how to set this up. So in theory, if I press preview now, let's see what we end up with. All right, cool. The page loads. We have a very, very simple bare bones app here. Now, keep in mind, you can style this, and this is a standard repeating group, so you can style this in any way that works best with your app to make it feel completely native. You can set a condition to say, don't show any results until a search term is put in, until there's something in this input. You can set conditions to make this behave and look in any way you like. All we're doing here is setting up the core of this plugin to get you started and get the ball rolling. So it's showing 8 results here, 8 random movies from our movie data set. What should we search for? You can see Harry Potter here. Let's search for Harry Potter. And we should see our results change to just Harry Potter movies. There we go. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Goblet of Fire, Order of Phoenix, all the Harry Potter movies showing up here. That works really well. If I delete that, we're back to our kind of default results here. If I go Jurassic World, there we go. We can see Jurassic World Dominion, everything Jurassic World here. If I make it more general, just Jurassic, there we go. We have Jurassic Park and Jurassic Hunt and a few other things that are more of a general search term. If we jump back to Algolia for a moment here, we're here in our index here with all of our movies, and I go to Search API Logs, I can see that, we called a few seconds ago, a minute ago. Here are the calls that, we were just making through our app through the API. We can see it's a post method. It was a successful call with a code 200. We can see this all working and connecting back and forth and actually searching our data set. I did forget to mention one other thing here with this simple search element. So I've checked search begins when typing is finished. So that is, it's waiting for my input to finish, and then it just automatically triggers the search. If you want to turn this off and then set this to an action or a workflow with maybe a search button or some other way to customize this, you absolutely can do that as well. There are workflows associated that do all of that there. Let's look at one of those workflows actually for how to update our data set. And that's what I have this button here for, Add Object. We don't necessarily want to just be looking at the data. We want to be adding to the data now. We want to add something new to our data set from Bubble's end. So this can be really useful for, if you're updating your database, displaying things in a CMS, something that's user-generated they add to your app and you want it to be searchable. Now, I've put a button here that just says Add Object. Okay, this is very simple here. Let's have a look at the workflow I have attached to that. So if we look at our actions, we have a bunch of Algolia-related actions and workflows that we can work with in our Workflows tab here. Refreshing search, searching for facet values, deleting objects, adding objects, all the more advanced functionality that can be done with this plugin here. And on that note, please do have a look through the documentation for all of this and how this all works and what you can do to build in more advanced functionality within this plugin for a full overview of all of these workflows and actions. There we are. Recent searches, updating objects, setting settings that might change dynamically, all here in the documentation. But now though, let's do a very simple workflow, something very basic, just to add something to our index, to our Algolia database. So from our design tab here, our main bubble editor, I have a button here that says add object. Let's have a look at the workflow attached to that. You'll see there is just one simple step here. When the button add object is clicked, add object. And that is an action that will be part of the plugin once we have the plugin in our app. Now, there are two fields here. When I click on add objects, there are two fields in the modal that we need to have a look at. The first is the name of our index, which we've seen so far in this video. Ours is called movie. And then we have a JSON object here that gives the workflow the data it needs to know what to add to our Algolia database. And now this is matching the documentation, which you'll see here under the add object section. So this is the format we need. And there's a lot more in here, obviously, for customizing this and more advanced use cases of replacing existing objects, adding new objects. So have a look here for more detail for more advanced use cases. But for our workflow, this is all we need for now. We just have the format matching the correct format from the documentation. And then we have fields for the title of what we're adding, and then the overview of what we're adding, that description of the item. Now, I've just made up something here, bubble the movie, just something unique so that we can see before and after, and make sure that it has added something to our database. So that's it, really, just that one step. The information we need, the index we need, and the credentials are being pulled from our plugin's settings that we added in previously in the video. So let's hit preview, and let's see what we end up with. So I'm just going to refresh this. Cool, we have our defaults here. Let's search for, before clicking the button, let's just search for bubble the movie and see what we end up with. Okay, we do not have something called bubble the movie. This is good. We just have Algolia's best approximations of the closest things to this here. So there must be a description or something in these movies that relates to our search term. Let's clear that and go back to our defaults. Now let's click add object. And by clicking this, it's going to run through this workflow, add this information to our index, and then we should be able to search for it in our results. So here we go. I'll click add object. Now, if this was a production app, we would put in some sort of, feedback or loading state or some sort of indication that something has happened. But there we go. We saw our progress bar. It's added. Now let's do a search for bubble the movie and see what we end up with. There we go. First result, bubble the movie. That's all worked just as we wanted it to. Excellent. And if we jump back over to Algolia in our search tab here and browse, we can actually search in here and check that it's all worked. So bubble, or we know it's worked, or we can see what it looks like from Algolia's end. There we go. We can see the overview that we put in. This is our test add object. Here's the title. And if we go to search logs, there we go. We can see it added into our index here, and then we searched and queried for it as well. So there we go, looking good. This is interesting. We can also see what showed up in those results that weren't our test objects. So there was a description with the word bubble, the word bubbles, and even a similar word, bumble. So it's good to see how this all works together and how the search is actually working in Algolia's end. Alrighty, and that's about it for our basic setup of the Algolia Search plugin. So we have set up Algolia. We've got a index of sample data, which you can make your own data, as we saw how. We connect to that via the API keys and this element here, the Algolia Simple Search element. And then we can use an input to search, to send a search query off and get the results. And we display the results in a repeating group, again, through this element here. And we also saw the beginnings of some basic workflows here with adding an object by adding it straight through to our application ID and our index that we set up in Algolia. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot more this can do. You can move into much more advanced workflows and much more advanced implementations, depending on what your app needs to do. So do check out the documentation. And if you have any questions at all, send us a message on our Indicom support channel, and we would love to help you out. But for now, this should be enough to get the ball rolling and get you started and get the basics set up. And you can then, build on that for your own app's requirements. And that's about it for this video. I hope this is helpful. Let us know if you have any questions at all. We would love to help you out. And until then, happy building.